Imagine stepping into a grand country mansion. Its halls glowing with candlelight, the air buzzing with laughter, and the clink of cocktail glasses. You're surrounded by elegant guests in tuxedos and glittering gowns, but a chill runs down your spine. Something feels wrong. In the corner, a small man with a perfectly waxed mustache watches everyone, his sharp eyes missing nothing. Then, a glass shatters on the floor. A guest collapses, gasping, their face twisted in agony. The room freezes, and a scream pierces the silence. Was it an accident or something far darker? Welcome to the dark truth behind Poirot's 3-act tragedy, a thrilling tale of murder, secrets, and Hercule Poirot's relentless pursuit of the truth. In this 10-chaptered adventure, we'll follow the Belgian detective through a deadly web of poisonings at a lavish gathering, where every guest hides a secret, and each act of this tragedy pulls us deeper into a chilling conspiracy. So grab a seat, brace yourself for twists, and let's unravel this mystery together. Don't forget to like and subscribe to join the investigation. It's a warm summer evening in 1935, and the Cornwall countryside is alive with the scent of blooming roses, fresh-cut grass, and the distant hum of crickets. Lumouth Manor, the grand estate of Sir Charles Cartwright, a retired actor with a flair for the dramatic, glows under the golden light of chandeliers. The air inside is rich with the aroma of polished wood, fine cigars, and the sharp tang of gin and tonic from the cocktails being passed around. I, Captain Arthur Hastings, stand in the grand hall, my tie a bit crooked from the long train ride from London. My mood lifted by the promise of a weekend filled with good company, fine food, and maybe a chance to relax. Beside me is Hercule Poirot, his black suit crisp as ever, his waxed mustache a work of art, his gray eyes scanning the room like a hawk searching for prey. Sir Charles invited us to this gathering, a reunion of old friends and theater folk. But a cryptic note tucked into his invitation hinted at trouble, a puzzle that only Poirot's famous little gray cells can solve. The manor is a masterpiece of elegance, its oak-paneled walls hung with portraits of stern ancestors, its crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow over velvet drapes and gleaming parquet floors. The guests are a colorful bunch, each one straight out of a stage play. There's Lady Mary Lytton, a sharp-tongued widow with a quick wit and a habit of sipping her martini a little too fast. Dr. Bartholomew Strange, a neurologist with a dry sense of humor, adjusts his glasses as he talks about brain science. Angela Sutcliffe, a glamorous actress with a sultry voice and a dazzling smile, flirts with everyone, her red dress catching the light. Oliver Manders, a young playwright with a moody streak, broods in a corner, nursing a whiskey. Miss Muriel Wills, who writes plays under the pen name Anthony Astor, peers through thick glasses, scribbling notes in a small book. And then there's the Reverend Stephen Babington, kind-hearted cleric with a gentle smile, sipping ginger ale instead of alcohol. Sir Charles, our host, moves through the crowd like a born performer, his booming laugh and dramatic stories about his theater days drawing everyone in. Poirot, though, isn't charmed. He's watching, always watching, his leather-bound notebook open, his fountain pen scratching quick notes about the guests, the way Lady Mary's eyes dart to Sir Charles, the way Angela's laugh sounds forced, the way Manders grips his glass too tightly. "Hastings," he whispers, his voice soft but serious. "This party is a stage, and these people are actors playing parts. But one of them, I fear, is playing a dangerous game." I try to brush off his words, wanting to enjoy the evening. But his intensity is contagious. I start noticing things: the way Dr. Strange avoids talking about his work, the way Miss Wills keeps her notebook close, like it's hiding secrets. The air feels heavier, like a storm is brewing beneath the laughter. We move to the dining room for dinner, and it's a feast fit for royalty: roast lamb, with rosemary creamy mashed potatoes, fresh asparagus and butter sauce, and a rich chocolate. Mousse for dessert. Table sparkles with fine china, silver cutlery, and decanters of deep red port. Sir Charles sits at the head, telling stories of his days on the London stage, while Angela flirts with Manders and Lady Mary trades barbs. With Dr. Strange, Poirot, seated across from me, barely touches his food, his eyes flicking from guest to guest. He leans close, his voice a whisper. "Observe Hastings. The Reverend Babington, he drinks only ginger ale, yet he seems uneasy, and Miss Wills her pen never stops. What is she writing?" I glance at Babington, who's smiling politely, but his hands tremble slightly. Miss Wills, meanwhile, scribbles away, her glasses glinting in the candlelight. After dinner, we gather in the drawing room for cocktails, the air filled with the clink of glasses and the soft hum of a gramophone, playing jazz. Sir Charles, ever the showman, proposes a toast to friendship, raising his glass high. Everyone joins in, even Babington with his ginger ale, his kind face glowing with warmth. But then it happens. His smile fades, his eyes widen, and his glass slips from his hand, shattering on the floor. He gasps, clutching his throat, and collapses, his body twitching as the room freezes in shock. Angela screams, her voice piercing the silence, and I rush to Babington's side, my old army medical training kicking in. His pulse is faint, his breathing shallow, his face pale as death. Dr. Strange kneels beside me, his hands steady as he checks for signs of life. "Poison," he says grimly, his voice low, something fast and deadly. Poirot is there in an instant, his gloved hands careful, his eyes scanning the scene like a detective on a hunt. He picks up the broken glass, sniffing it carefully, his nose wrinkling at a faint bitter smell beneath the ginger ale's sweetness. "Nicotine, perhaps," he murmurs, "or a similar toxin." "This is no accident, Hastings. This is murder, planned with care." The guests are in chaos. Lady Mary clutches her pearls, her face white. Angela sobs dramatically, clinging to Manders. Sir Charles looks shaken, his theatrical charm gone. Will scribbles faster, her eyes darting around. Dr. Strange tries to calm everyone, but his own hands shake slightly, betraying his nerves. The gentle Reverend Babington, a man with no enemies, lies dead, and the room feels like a stage where the curtain has just risen on a tragedy. Poirot takes charge, a small frame commanding the room. "Madame et messieurs," he says, his voice clear and firm, "a crime has been committed. No one leaves this house until I have answers. The police will be called, but I, Hercule Poirot, will find the truth." He orders the drawing room sealed, the broken glass preserved for analysis, and begins questioning the guests. Sir Charles admits to pouring the drinks, but swears the ginger ale came from a sealed bottle. Angela says she was flirting with Manders. Across the room, nowhere near the drinks tray, Lady Mary claims she was talking to Miss Wills, who nods but keeps her notebook close. Dr. Strange says he was by the gramophone, but Poirot notes a faint stain on his cuff, a drop of ginger ale. Perhaps Manders, sullen and quiet, says he saw nothing unusual. Every answer feels like a half-truth, and Poirot's notebook fills with observations, the guests' nervous glances, their shaky voices, the way Miss Wills' pen pauses when asked about. Her note: the local police arrive, led by Inspector Cross, a gruff man who respects Poirot's reputation but bristles at his methods. Poirot pulls me aside, his voice low and urgent. "Hastings, this murder is the first act of a larger drama. The poison was meant for Babington, but why? He was a harmless cleric, yet someone saw him as a threat. We must watch the guests closely, for the killer is among them, and they will strike again. The manor, once a place of warmth and laughter, now feels like a trap, its grand halls hiding dark secrets." As the police begin their work, Poirot's eyes gleam with purpose, his little gray cells already unraveling the threads of this deadly performance. That's the end of Chapter 1. With Poirot facing the shocking murder of Reverend Babington, the first act in a chilling tragedy. Who poisoned the kindly cleric? And what secrets are the guests hiding? Drop your theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 2 of the dark truth behind Poirot's three-act tragedy. The curtain is up, and the mystery is just beginning. The grand halls of Lumouth Manor, once alive with the warmth of laughter and the glow of chandeliers, now feel cold and heavy, the air thick with suspicion and the lingering scent of spilled ginger ale. The shocking murder of Reverend Stephen Babington, poisoned during Sir Charles Cartwright's elegant cocktail party, has cast a shadow over the estate, turning its opulent rooms into a stage for a deadly drama. I, Captain Arthur Hastings, stand in the drawing room, my nerves on edge, my old army instincts urging me to stay alert. Hercule Poirot, his black suit still crisp despite the chaos, moves with quiet purpose, his waxed mustache as perfect as ever, his gray eyes scanning the guests like a detective reading a script. The broken glass that held Babington's poisoned drink sits under a cloth, preserved for the police. But Poirot's little gray cells are already at work, piecing together. The clues. The guests Lady Mary Lytton, Dr. Bartholomew Strange, Angela Sutcliffe, Oliver Manders, and Miss Muriel Wilzar, a mix of shaken and secretive. Each one a potential suspect in this chilling first act. Inspector Cross, the local police officer, hovers nearby, his gruff demeanor no match for Poirot's calm authority. The manor feels like a gilded cage, and the killer is among us, hiding behind a mask of politeness. Poirot gathers the guests in the drawing room, where the gramophone's jazz has been silenced, replaced by the low hum of nervous whispers. Chandeliers cast flickering shadows across the velvet drapes, and the air smells faintly of cigar smoke and fear. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot begins, his voice clear and steady. The Reverend Babington was murdered, poisoned with a substance likely nicotining his ginger ale. This was no accident. I must know who handled the drinks, who stood near the tray, and who had reason to wish him harm. The guests shift uncomfortably, their eyes darting to one another. Sir Charles, his theatrical charm dimmed, insists he poured the drinks from a shared bottle, his hands trembling slightly as he speaks. I served everyone, he says, but I swear the ginger ale was clean. Poirot's gaze lingers on him, noting the sweat on his brow, the way his fingers fidget with his cufflinks. Lady Mary Lytton, her pearls clutched tightly, claims she was talking to Miss Wills by the fireplace, far from the drinks tray. Her sharp wit falters as she speaks, her voice catching when Poirot asks about her glances at Sir Charles during dinner. Angela Sutcliffe, the glamorous actress, tosses her hair and says she was flirting with Oliver Manders across the room, her red dress, a vivid contrast to her pale face. Manders, the brooding playwright, nods, his dark eyes avoiding Poirot's, his whiskey glass still in hand. Dr. Strange, the neurologist, says he was adjusting the gramophone, but Poirot points out the faint stain of ginger ale on his cuff. Curious detail, deter, Poirot says, his tone mild but piercing. Miss Wills, the mousy playwright, adjusts her glasses nervously, her notebook clutched like a shield. I was observing, she says softly, for my next play. I saw nothing unusual. Poirot's pen scratches in his notebook, capturing every word, every gesture. We move to inspect the drinks tray, now cordoned off by Inspector Cross's men. Poirot examines the remaining glasses, sniffing each one carefully, his nose wrinkling at the faint, bitter smell in one martini glass, half empty, left near Babington's. Interesting, non? He murmurs. The poison may have been meant for another, or placed to confuse. He finds a small vial tucked behind a decanter, its contents clear, but faintly chemical-smelling. Possibly nicotine, he says, wrapping it in a handkerchief. For analysis. I feel a chill, the memory of Babington's twitching body vivid in my mind. Why him, Poirot, I ask? He was just a kind old cleric. Poirot's eyes gleam. That Hastings is the question. He was no threaten, unless he knew something he should not. Poirot questions the staff next, a nervous group of maids and footmen who served the drinks. One maid, Elsie, admits to refilling the ginger ale bottle, but swears it was sealed when she opened it. A footman, Tom, says he saw someone near the tray just before the toast, a figure in a dark jacket. It's possibly Manders or Dr. Strange. Poirot's notebook fills with details, the maid's trembling hands, the footman's hesitant glance, the guests' conflicting alibis. He pulls me aside, his voice low. Hastings, this murder is a performance, staged to hide a deeper motive. The poison was precise, the timing deliberate. We must look beyond the act to the script. We search the guest rooms, with Inspector Cross's reluctant permission, for any clue to the poison's source. In Sir Charles's study, we find a locked drawer containing a small bottle of nicotine solution. It's labeled as a pesticide for his garden. Curious, Poirot says, for a man who claims no interest in gardening? In Angela's room, a makeup case holds a vial of clear liquid, similar to the one on the tray. But she insists it's perfume. Dr. Strange's medical bag contains syringes and sedatives, but nothing clearly toxic. Miss Will's room yields a stack of handwritten notes, some in code, describing the guest's habits in eerie detail. She watches too closely, Poirot murmurs, tucking a page into his notebook. Mander's room has a crumpled letter addressed to an unknown recipient. The plan must change. He knows too much. Lady Mary's room offers little. But a hidden locket contains a photo of a young man who resembles Sir Charles, raising questions. About her past, as we return to the drawing room, the guests are restless, their fear growing as the night deepens. Poirot gathers them again, holding up the nicotine vial. This was found near the drinks tray, he says, watching their reactions. Who among you uses such a poison? Sir Charles pales, Angela gasps, and Dr. Strange's hand twitches. Miss Wills scribbles faster, her glasses glinting. Before anyone can answer, a scream echoes from the dining room, and we rush to find Elsie. The maid collapsed on the floor, a glass of port beside her. Her face twisted in pain. Dr. Strange kneels, his voice grim. Poison again. She's alive, but barely. Poirot's eyes blaze with urgency, his cane tapping the floor. The second act, Hastings. The killer strikes again, and the curtain is far from falling. That's the end of Chapter 2, with Poirot diving deeper into a deadly mystery as a second poisoning rocks Loomuth Manor. Who is targeting the guests, and what secret did Babington know? Drop your theories in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 3 of the dark truth behind Poirot's 3-act tragedy. The drama is heating up, and the killer is still at large. The grand halls of Loomuth Manor, once a beacon of elegance with their polished oak and sparkling chandeliers, now feel like a maze of shadows, each corner hiding a potential threat. The air is heavy with the scent of spilled wine, cigar smoke, and the sharp tang of fear as the second poisoning this time of Elsie. The maid sends a fresh wave of panic through Sir Charles Cartwright's lavish estate. I, Captain Arthur Hastings, stand in the dining room, my heart racing. My old army instincts urging me to act, but the chilling realization that a killer is among us keeps me rooted. Hercule Poirot, his black suit immaculate despite the chaos, moves with calm precision, his waxed mustache unwavering, his gray eyes scanning the scene like a director studying a stage. The murder of Reverend Stephen Babington, poisoned by nicotine in his ginger ale, was the first act of this deadly drama, and now Elsie's collapse. A glass of port beside her signals the second act. The vial of nicotine found near the drinks tray, the coded notes in Miss Muriel Will's room, the mysterious letter in Oliver Mander's belongings, and the faint ginger ale stain on Dr. Bartholomew Strange's cuff are threads in a web that Poirot is determined to unravel. Inspector Cross, the gruff local policeman, hovers nearby. His skepticism of Poirot's methods clear, but the mounting body count demands action. And only Poirot's little gray cells can keep up with this killer's pace. Elsie lies on the dining room floor, her breathing shallow, her face pale and twisted in pain. Dr. Strange kneels beside her, his medical expertise in full force as he checks her pulse, his hands steady but his brow furrowed. It's poison again, he says, his voice low, likely the same as Babington's nicotine, or something close. Poirot examines the spilled port glass, sniffing it carefully, his nose detecting the same bitter odor as before. Ah, mon. Gia, he murmurs. The killer is bold, striking twice in one night. This is no random act, it is a performance with a purpose. I help lift Elsie onto a nearby chaise, my medical training from the war guiding my hands, though my stomach churns at the thought of another victim. The guests, gathered at the dining room door, are a mix of horror and suspicion. Lady Mary Lytton clutches her pearls, her sharp wit silenced. Angela Sutcliffe, the actress, stifles a sob, her red dress stark against her pale face. Oliver Manders stands rigid, his dark eyes fixed on the scene. Miss Wills scribbles in her notebook, her glasses glinting. And Sir Charles, our host, looks ashen, his theatrical charm shattered. Poirot takes charge, his small frame commanding the room as he orders Inspector Cross to secure the glass and send for a doctor from the village. We must preserve the evidence, he says, his voice firm, and keep the guests here. No one leaves until we understand this second attack. Cross grumbles but complies, his men cordoning off the dining room as the guests shuffle back to the drawing room, their whispers buzzing. Like a swarm of bees, Poirot kneels by the glass, his gloved hands careful, his eyes noting a faint smudge on its rim, a trace of lipstick, pale pink, unlike Angela's vibrant red. Interesting, Nan? He says, glancing at me. The poison was in the port, but this lipstick suggests a woman or someone clever enough to make us think so. I think of Lady Mary's nervous glances, Miss Will's secretive notes, Angela's dramatic tears, to wonder who among them could be so cold, dash-blooded. We follow the guests to the drawing room, where the air is thick with tension, the chandeliers casting eerie shadows across the velvet drapes. Poirot begins questioning them again, his tone gentle but his questions sharp as a blade. "Who is near the drinks tray after dinner?" he asks, his eyes sweeping the room. Sir Charles admits to pouring the port, but insists it was from a sealed decanter, his hands shaking as he speaks. "I served everyone," he says, "but I didn't touch Elsie's glass." Poirot's gaze lingers on him, noting the sweat on his brow, the way his fingers fidget with his tie. Lady Mary claims she was by the window, talking to Angela, but her eyes dart to Sir Charles, betraying a hidden connection. Angela says she was with Manders, her voice trembling, but Poirot points out her lipstick doesn't match the smudge. Manders, sullen as ever, says he was smoking by the terrace door, but his jacket smells faintly of port. Miss Wills, her pen never stopping, says she was observing the room, but Poirot notes her notebook's coded entries. Raising his suspicions, Dr. Strange, his cuff still stained, claims he was checking his watch, but his nervous tic betrays him. Poirot pulls me aside, his voice a whisper. "Hastings, the killer, is playing a clever game. The poisonings are acts in a play, each one building to a climax. Babington was the first, Elsie the second, but why a cleric and a maid? They are not the true targets, I think, but warnings." I frown, confused. "Warnings for who, Poirot?" He taps his temple. "For someone who knows too much, Hastings. The letter in Manders' room, the plan must change. He knows too much suggests a secret, perhaps tied to Sir Charles or Lady Mary. We must dig deeper, search the manor further, with Cross's men guarding the guests." In the butler's pantry, where the drinks were prepared, Poirot finds a hidden shelf behind a stack of bottles, holding a small tin of nicotine powder, its label faded but clear. "This," he says, "is the source of the poison, hidden where only someone familiar with the house could find it." I think of Sir Charles, the host, and his pesticide bottle, but also the staff Tom, the footman, who saw someone near the tray, or Elsie, now a victim herself. In Angela's dressing room, we find a script for a new play, its margins filled with cryptic notes about timing and doses, chillingly precise. Manders' room yields a cigarette case with a false bottom, containing a single syringe, its needle gleaming. For poison, perhaps, Poirot murmurs, or a distraction. Back in the drawing room, the guests are restless, their fear growing as news of Elsie's poisoning spreads. Poirot holds up the nicotine tin, watching their reactions. "This was found in the pantry," he says, "where the drinks were prepared. Who among you knows of it?" Sir Charles stammers, claiming it's for his roses, but his voice falters. Angela's eyes widen, Manders grips his chair, and Miss Will's pen pauses, her glasses glinting. Dr. Strange, his face pale, insists. He uses no such chemicals, but the stain on his cuff tells another story. Before Poirot can press further, a loud crash echoes from the terrace, followed by a cry of pain. We rush outside, the night air cold and damp, and find Tom, the footman, slumped against the wall, a gash on his head. A broken bottle of port beside him, Someone attacked me, he gasps from behind. In the dark, Poirot's eyes blaze with urgency, his cane tapping the ground. The third act approaches, Hastings. The killer is desperate, and they will not stop until their secret is safe. The manor, now a labyrinth of danger, closes in around us. The truth feels tantalizingly close, but deadly. That's the end of Chapter 3, with Poirot uncovering more clues, but facing a third attack as the killer grows bolder. Who attacked Tom, and what secret ties the poisonings together? Drop your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 4 of The Dark Truth. Behind Poirot's three-act tragedy, the stage is set for more danger, and the killer is watching. Losmoth Manor looms under the weight of a moonless night, its grand halls and sparkling chandeliers now shrouded in a chilling air of dread. The scent of cigar smoke, spilled port, and the faint chemical temps of poison lingers, a constant reminder of the deadly drama unfolding within these walls. The murder of Reverend Stephen Babington, the poisoning of Elsie the maid, and now the attack on Tom the footman have turned Sir Charles Cartwright's elegant gathering into a stage for a sinister performance. I, Captain Arthur Hastings, stand on the terrace where Tom lies slumped, my heart pounding, my old army instincts urging me to scan the shadows for danger. Hercule Poirot, his black suit barely rumpled despite the chaos, kneels beside Tom, his waxed mustache steady, his gray eyes sharp as he examines the gash on the footman's head and the broken port bottle nearby, the nicotine tin from the pantry, the coded notes in Miss Muriel Will's room, the syringe in Oliver Mander's cigarette case, and the cryptic script in Angela Sutcliffe's dressing room are pieces of a puzzle that Poirot's little gray cells are piecing together. Inspector Cross, the gruff local policeman, paces nearby, his frustration growing, but Poirot's calm authority keeps the investigation on track. The manor feels like a trap, its opulent rooms hiding secrets that could kill again. Tom groans, his eyes fluttering as Poirot gently questions him. Who attacked you, monsieur? Poirot asks, his voice soft but urgent. Tom's voice is weak, his words halting. Didn't see. Someone in a dark coat hit me from behind. He points to the broken bottle, its shards glinting in the lantern light. Poirot sniffs the glass, detecting the same bitter odor as Babington's ginger ale and Elsie's port. Poison again, he murmurs, but this time the attack was personal, to silence a witness. I feel a chill, my hand resting on the revolver in my pocket, my eyes scanning the terrace's dark corners, though the guests confined to the drawing room under police guard are a ticking bomb of fear and suspicion. And the attack on Tom suggests the killer is growing desperate. We help Tom to a chair, where a village doctor, summoned by Inspector Cross, tends to his wound. Poirot examines the bottle's shards, finding a faint smudge of wax on one piece, as if sealed to hide its contents. Curious, Nan? He says, wrapping the shard in a handkerchief. The killer uses poison with precision, but this attack was clumsy, rushed. He turns to me, his voice low. Hastings, the killer knows we are close. Tom saw something, perhaps the figure near the drinks tray, and they struck to keep him quiet. I nod, my mind racing to the suspects. Sir Charles with his hidden nicotine bottle, Angela with her cryptic script, Manders with his syringe, Miss Wills with her coded notes, Dr. Strange with his stained cuff, or Lady Mary with her secretive locket. The note in Manders' room, the plan must change. He knows too much goes in my head, suggesting a deeper motive. We return to the drawing room, where the guests sit in tense silence, their elegance fraying under the weight of fear. Lady Mary Lytton twists her pearls, her sharp tongue silent, her eyes darting to Sir Charles. Angela Sutcliffe, her red dress vibrant but her face pale, clings to Manders, who stares at the floor, his hands clenched. Dr. Strange adjusts his glasses, the ginger ale stain on his cuff more noticeable in the flickering light. Miss Wills scribbles. In her notebook, her glasses glinting as she watches everyone. Sir Charles, his theatrical charm gone, paces by the fireplace, his face drawn. Poirot stands before them, holding up the wax-smudged shard. Madame et messieurs, he says, his voice clear. Another attack has occurred. Tom the footman was struck, and this bottle was poisoned. The killer is among us, and they are growing reckless. Who knows of this wax? The room stirs, but no one speaks. Poirot's eyes lock onto Dr. Strange. Doctor, your cuff bears a stain from Babington's glass. Your medical bag holds syringes that could deliver poison. Explain. Strange's face flushes, but he insists. I'm a neurologist, Monsieur Poirot. My tools are for healing, not harm. Poirot turns to Angela, holding up the script from her room. Mademoiselle Sutcliffe, your notes speak of doses and timing most theatrical, Nan. Were you planning a performance? Angela laughs nervously, her voice shaky. It's just a script, monsieur, for my next role. Poirot's smile is thin, his gaze moving to Miss Wills. And you, mademoiselle, your notes are in code, observing every guest. What do you hide? Wills adjusts her glasses, her voice soft. I'm a writer, monsieur. Observe for my art. Poirot's questions continue, probing Sir Charles about the nicotine bottle, Lady Mary about her locket, and Manders about his letter. Each answer feels like a half-truth, their nervous glances weaving a web of deceit. We move to search the terrace, hoping for more clues. In the shadows, Poirot finds a cigarette butt, its brand rare and expensive, matching one found in Manders' room. He was here, Poirot says, or someone wants us to think so. Near the terrace door, a dropped handkerchief bears a faint monogram L, pointing to Lady Mary. Her locket glances at Sir Charles. Poirot murmurs. There is a connection, Hastings. Perhaps romantic, perhaps dangerous. Back inside, Poirot gathers the staff, questioning them about the terrace. A gardener, John, admits to seeing a figure in a dark coat near the pantry earlier, but couldn't identify them. It was dark, he says, and they moved fast. Poirot's notebook fills with details: the cigarette, the handkerchief, the wax smudge, the coded notes. He pulls me aside, his voice urgent. Hastings, this is no simple murder. The poisonings are a distraction, a cover for a larger plan. Babington, Elsie, Tom, they were not the targets, but obstacles. Someone in this manor holds a secret worth killing for, and we must find it before the third act ends. As we prepare to question the guests again, a loud thud echoes from the library, followed by a muffled cry. We rush in, the air thick with the smell of old books and dust, and find Dr. Strange slumped over a desk, a glass of whiskey beside him, his face contorted in pain. Poirot kneels, sniffing the glass, his eyes widening. Poison again, he says, and this time it is deadly. The guests, alerted by the cry, gather at the door, their faces a mix of shock and fear. The killer has struck again, and the manor is running out of time. That's the end of Chapter 4. With Poirot closing in on the killer, as Dr. Strange becomes the third victim in this deadly tragedy, what secret is worth so many lives? Whose? Next on the killer's list? Drop your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 5 of the dark truth behind Poirot's three-act tragedy. The final act is near, and the danger is growing. Lumouth Manor stands like a fortress under siege, its grand halls and glittering chandeliers now cloaked in an oppressive air of fear and death. The scent of old books, spilled whiskey, and the bitter tang of poison hangs heavy in the library, where Dr. Bartholomew Strange lies slumped over a desk, his lifeless eyes staring at a glass of whiskey laced with the same deadly toxin that claimed Reverend Babington and nearly killed Elsie the maid. I, Captain Arthur Hastings, stand frozen, my heart pounding, my old army instincts screaming to act, but the weight of 3 attacks: Babington's murder, Elsie's poisoning, and Tom the footman's assault pins me in place. Hercule Poirot, his black suit still crisp despite the chaos, kneels beside Dr. Strange's body, his waxed mustache steady, his gray eyes blazing with a mix of sorrow and determination. The nicotine tin from the pantry, the coded notes in Miss Muriel Will's room, the syringe in Oliver Manders' cigarette case, the cryptic script in Angela Sutcliffe's dressing room, and the monogrammed handkerchief on the terrace are threads. In a deadly web that Poirot's little gray cells are weaving together, Inspector Cross, the gruff policeman, storms into the library, his face red with frustration. But even he defers to Poirot's calm authority as the body count rises. The manor is a stage, and the killer is directing a tragedy that's spiraling. Toward its final act, Poirot examines the whiskey glass, sniffing it carefully, his nose wrinkling at the familiar bitter odor of nicotine. "Mon Dieu," he murmurs, his voice low but urgent. The killer is relentless. 3 victims, each struck with precision, yet each attack feels like a piece of a larger puzzle. I help move Dr. Strange's body to a nearby sofa, my hands shaking as I check for a pulse, though I know it's futile. His face, once sharp with wit, is now a mask of agony, his glasses askew, the ginger ale stain on his cuff, a haunting clue. The guests gathered at the library door are a chorus of gasps, and whispers. Lady Mary Lytton clutches her pearls, her face pale. Angela Sutcliffe, her red dress stark against her trembling frame, stifles a sob. Oliver Manders stands rigid, his dark eyes unreadable. Miss Muriel Wills scribbles in her notebook, her glasses glinting. And Sir Charles Cartwright, our host, looks like a broken actor, his theatrical charm shattered. Inspector Cross orders his men to seal the library, but Poirot takes charge, his small frame commanding the room. "No one leaves," he says, "until we unravel this deadly performance." He gathers the guests in the drawing room, the air thick with the scent of cigar smoke and fear. The chandeliers casting eerie shadows across the velvet drapes. "Madame et messieurs," Poirot begins, his voice clear and piercing. 3 attacks in one night, Reverend Babington, poisoned. Elsie, poisoned. And now Dr. Strange, dead by the same toxin. This is no coincidence. The killer is among us, and their motive is hidden in their secrets. Who handled the whiskey? Sir Charles, his hands trembling, admits to pouring drinks after dinner, but insists the whiskey was from a sealed bottle. "I served everyone," he says, his voice cracking, "but I didn't touch Strange's glass." Poirot's eyes narrow, noting the sweat on his brow, the way his fingers clutch his tie. Lady Mary says she was by the fireplace, talking to Angela, but her monogrammed handkerchief found on the terrace raises questions. Angela claims she was comforting Manders, but her script's notes on doses linger in Poirot's mind. Manders says he was smoking outside, but the rare cigarette butt from the terrace matches his brand. Miss Wills, her pen never stopping, says she was observing, but her coded notes suggest more. Poirot holds up the whiskey glass. Its faint lipstick smudge pale pink, not Angela's red gleaming in the light. "This smudge," he says, points to a woman, or someone clever enough to mislead us. And the nicotine tin, hidden in the pantry, suggests someone with intimate knowledge of this house. The guests shift uncomfortably, their eyes darting. Poirot turns to Sir Charles. "Monsieur, your pesticide bottle contained nicotine. Why keep such a poison?" Sir Charles stammers, claiming it's for his roses, but his eyes avoid Poirot's. Lady Mary, when asked about her handkerchief, insists it was lost days ago, but her nervous glance at Sir Charles betrays a connection. Angela denies touching the whiskey, but her script's cryptic notes hint at a darker role. Manders, sullen, says he was nowhere near the library, but the cigarette butt tells another story. Miss Wills' coded notes, when Poirot demands to see them, reveal detailed observations of Dr. Strange's habits. Chillingly precise. We search the library for more clues, with Cross's men guarding the door. Poirot finds a hidden panel behind a bookshelf, revealing a small safe, its lock recently tampered with. Inside is a letter, written in a hurried hand. The deal must be stopped. He knows the truth. The signature is illegible, but the paper matches. The note in Manders' room. Conspiracy, Poirot murmurs, perhaps tied to Sir Charles's theater world, or Lady Mary's past. In Dr. Strange's pocket, we find a key, its design intricate, possibly for the safe. He was a target, Poirot says, because he knew something perhaps about the poison, or the plan. I feel a chill, the word he knows too much echoing from Manders' letter. Was Strange the he who had to be silenced? Back in the drawing room, the guests are a powder keg of fear, their elegance crumbling. Poirot questions them again, his tone gentle but relentless. "Mademoiselle Wills," he says, "your notes describe Dr. Strange's every move. Why such interest?" Wills adjusts her glasses, her voice soft. "I'm a writer, monsieur. I study people for my plays." Smile is thin, and yet your codes suggest more than art. He turns to Angela, holding up her script. "Your notes speak of timing and doses, mademoiselle. A rehearsal for murder." Angela laughs nervously, her voice shaky. "It's fiction, monsieur." Poirot's gaze shifts to Manders, the cigarette butt in his hand. "Monsieur, you were on the terrace. Did you see Tom's attacker?" Manders shakes his head, but his clenched fists betray him. As the questioning intensifies, a loud crash echoes from the upstairs hall, followed by a muffled scream. We rush up the grand staircase, the air cold and damp, the manor's shadows closing in. In a guest bedroom, we find Angela's makeup case overturned, its contents scattered, a vial of clear liquid shattered on the floor. Angela stands in the doorway, her face white, her hands trembling. "Someone was in my room," she cries. Poirot kneels, sniffing the liquid, his eyes widening. "The same chemical as the pantry vial," he says. "The killer is here, Hastings, and they are desperate to cover their tracks." The manor, now a labyrinth of danger, feels alive with menace, and the third act is reaching its climax. That's the end of Chapter 5, with Poirot closing in on the killer as Dr. Strange's murder and a new attack deepen the mystery. What's the secret behind the safe's letter? Who's targeting Angela's room? Drop your theories in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 6 of the dark truth behind Poirot's three-act tragedy. The killer is cornered, but the danger is far from over. Loomis Manor, once a beacon of elegance with its polished oak walls and twinkling chandeliers, now feels like a grand theater where every shadow hides a deadly twist. The air is thick with the musty scent of old books, the sharp bite of spilled chemicals, and the heavy weight of fear that clings to every guest. The murder of Reverend Stephen Babington, the poisoning of Elsie the maid, the attack on Tom the footman, and now the death of Dr. Bartholomew Strange have turned Sir Charles, Cartwright's lavish gathering, into a stage for a chilling tragedy. I, Captain Arthur Hastings, stand in the guest bedroom where Angela Sutcliffe's makeup case lies overturned. A shattered vial of clear liquid pooling on the floor, its bitter odor matching the poison that's claimed lives. My heart pounds, my old army instincts urging me to check every corner for danger, my revolver a steady weight in my pocket. Hercule Poirot, his black suit barely creased, despite the chaos, examines the scene with surgical precision, his waxed mustache as perfect as ever, his gray eyes gleaming with the fire of his little gray cells. The nicotine tin from the pantry, the coded notes in Miss Muriel Will's room, the syringe in Oliver Mander's cigarette case, the cryptic script in Angela's dressing room, the monogrammed handkerchief on the terrace, and the letter from the library safe. The deal must be stopped. He knows the truth are threads in a deadly web that Poirot is determined to unravel. Inspector Cross, the gruff policeman, stomps behind us, his frustration boiling over, but even he knows only Poirot can navigate this maze of deceit. The manor is a trap, and the killer is directing a performance that's racing toward its final deadly act. Poirot kneels by the spilled vial, his gloved hands careful as he sniffs the liquid, his nose wrinkling at the familiar chemical tang. "Nicotine again," he murmurs, his voice low but sharp, the same as Babington, Elsie, and Strange. The killer is consistent, but this attack on Mademoiselle Sutcliffe's room is reckless, a sign they fear discovery. I glance at Angela, who stands trembling in the doorway, her red dress vivid against her pale face, her eyes wide with shock. "Someone was here," she repeats, her voice cracking. "They went through my things." Poirot's eyes flick to her, noting the way her hands clutch her arms, the faint smudge of powder on her fingers. "Mademoiselle," he says, "your script spoke of doses and timing. Is this vial part of your performance?" Angela shakes her head, her voice rising. "It's just perfume, monsieur. Someone planted it." Poirot's smile is thin, his pen scratching in his notebook as he observes her nervous gestures. We search the room. The air heavy with the scent of spilled perfume and dust. Among the scattered makeup, Poirot finds a small key, its design intricate, similar to the one in Dr. Strange's pocket. This, he says, holding it up, may fit the library safe, or something else in this manner. The killer is hiding something valuable. I feel a chill, the letter's words, he knows the truth, echoing in my mind. Was Angela the target? Or is she playing a part in this deadly drama? We move to the corridor, where the guests are gathered under police guard, their faces a mix of fear and suspicion. Lady Mary Lytton twists her pearls, her sharp wit silenced, her eyes darting to Sir Charles. Oliver Manders stands sullen, his dark jacket smelling faintly of cigarette smoke, matching the rare brand from the terrace. Miss Muriel Wills scribbles. In her notebook, her glasses glinting as she watches everyone. Sir Charles, his theatrical charm gone, leans against a wall, his face pale. Inspector Cross paces, muttering about needing answers. But Poirot's calm authority keeps the focus. Poirot gathers the guests in the grand hall. The chandeliers casting long shadows across the oak-paneled walls, the air thick with tension. Mesdames, messieurs, he begins, holding up the key and the shattered vial. The killer has struck again, targeting Mademoiselle Sutcliffe's room. This vial contained poison, and this key may unlock the heart of this mystery. Who among you knows its purpose? The room stirs, but no one speaks. Poirot turns to Sir Charles, his voice gentle but piercing. Monsieur, your pesticide bottle held nicotine, and you poured the drinks for Babington and Strange. What do you hide? Sir Charles stammers, his hands shaking. I'm just a host, Poirot. I know nothing of poison. Poirot's eyes move to Lady Mary, holding up her monogrammed handkerchief. Madame, this was found on the terrace where Tom was attacked. Your locket suggests a connection to Sir Charles. Speak. Lady Mary's face flushes, but she insists. It's nothing. Monsieur, a lost trinket. Poirot questions Manders. Next, pointing to the cigarette butt. Monsieur, your brand was found where Tom was struck. Were you there? Manders' jaw tightens, his voice low. Smoke everywhere, Poirot. It means nothing. Miss Wills, when asked about her coded notes, adjusts her glasses, her voice soft. I'm a writer, monsieur. I observe for my stories. Poirot holds up her notebook, its pages filled with details about Dr. Strange's habits. Your observations, mademoiselle, are too precise for fiction. Angela, still shaken, denies any knowledge of the vial, but her script's notes on doses linger in Poirot's mind. Each answer feels like a dodge, their nervous glances weaving a tapestry of lies. We search the manor further with crosses. Men guarding the guests. In the attic, hidden behind dusty crates, Poirot finds a locked chest, its design matching the key from Angela's room. He opens it, revealing a bundle of letters, a photograph of a young man resembling Sir Charles, and a vial of nicotine solution identical to the pantry tin. The letters, written in a woman's hand, speak of a scandal, a failed theater deal, a betrayed investor, and a secret that could ruin reputations. This, Poirot says, is the motive. Someone in this manner is protecting a past, and they kill to keep it buried. I think of Lady Mary's locket, Sir Charles's nervousness, and the note in Manders' room. The plan must change. He knows too much. Was Dr. Strange the he who knew the truth? Back in the grand hall, the guests are restless, their fear boiling over as news of Dr. Strange's death spreads. Poirot holds up the photograph, its resemblance to Sir Charles. Unmistakable. This man, he says, is tied to the motive. Scandal, perhaps financial, perhaps personal, who knows him? Lady Mary gasps, her hand flying to her locket, but she says nothing. Sir Charles's face pales, his voice weak. It's an old friend, long gone. Poirot's eyes gleam, his pen scratching faster. He pulls me aside, his voice urgent. Hastings, the killer is protecting a secret from Sir Charles's past. The deal gone wrong, a betrayal. Babington, Elsie, Strange, Tom. They were threats or distractions. The chest's contents point to Lady Mary or Sir Charles, but Manders and Wills know more than they admit. As we prepare to confront the guests again, a loud bang echoes from the kitchen, followed by a scream. We rush through the manor, the air cold and damp, and find the cook, Mrs. Baxter, collapsed on the floor. A cup of tea spilled beside her face twisted in pain. Poirot kneels, sniffing the tea, his eyes widening. "Poison again," he says, and this time, the killer is striking without pause. The guests, alerted by the scream, crowd the doorway, their faces a mix of horror and dread. The manor is a death trap, and the third act is closing in. That's the end of Chapter 6. With Poirot uncovering a scandal tied to Sir Charles's past, but another poisoning raising the stakes. Who's behind the chest's secrets? Is the killer targeting everyone, or just those who know too much? Drop your theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 7 of the dark truth behind Poirot's 3-act tragedy. The curtain is falling, and the truth is dangerously close. Lumouth Manor, once a grand stage for Sir Charles Cartwright's lavish gatherings, feels like a haunted theater, its opulent halls and flickering chandeliers casting long, menacing shadows. The air is thick with the bitter scent of spilled tea, the faint must of old wood, and the heavy weight of fear that grips every soul within these walls. The murder of Reverend Stephen Babington, the poisoning of Elsie the maid, the attack on Tom the footman, the death of Dr. Bartholomew Strange, and now the collapse of Mrs. Baxter, the cook, have turned this elegant weekend into a deadly performance, each act more chilling than the last. I, Captain Arthur Hastings, stand in the kitchen, my heart racing, my old army instincts urging me to grip the revolver in my pocket, my eyes scanning the dim corners for danger. Hercule Poirot, his black suit still pristine despite the chaos, kneels beside Mrs. Baxter, his waxed mustache unwavering, his gray eyes blazing with the fire of his little gray cells. The nicotine tin from the pantry, the coded notes in Miss Muriel Will's room, the syringe in Oliver Mander's cigarette case, the cryptic script in Angela Sutcliffe's dressing room, the monogrammed handkerchief on the terrace, and the letters from the attic chest hinting at a scandal tied to Sir Charles's form, a deadly puzzle that Poirot is determined to solve. Inspector Cross, the gruff policeman, storms into the kitchen, his face red with frustration. But even he knows only Poirot can unravel this web of deceit. The manor is a trap, and the killer is directing a tragedy that's hurtling toward its final, fatal curtain. Mrs. Baxter lies on the kitchen floor, her breathing shallow, her face twisted in pain, a spilled cup of tea beside her. Poirot sniffs the cup, his nose wrinkling at the familiar bitter odor of nicotine. "Mon Dieu," he murmurs, his voice low but urgent. The killer strikes again, with no pause. This tea was poisoned, just like Babington's ginger ale, Elsie's port, and Strange's whiskey. I help lift Mrs. Baxter to a nearby chair, my hands trembling as my medical training kicks in, though I fear she's fading fast. The village doctor, still tending to Elsie, rushes in, his bag open, his face grim as he administers an antidote, but his eyes tell me it may be too late. The guests, crowded at the kitchen door, are a chorus of gasps and whispers. Lady Mary Lytton clutches her pearls, her sharp wit gone. Angela Sutcliffe, her red dress stark against her pale face, covers her mouth. Oliver Manders stands rigid, his dark eyes unreadable. "What?" Miss Muriel Wills scribbles furiously, her glasses glinting. And Sir Charles, his theatrical charm shattered, looks like a man staring into his own grave. Inspector Cross orders his men to seal the kitchen, but Poirot's calm authority takes over. "No one moves," he says, "until we uncover the truth behind this latest act." Poirot examines the teacup, finding a faint smudge of wax on its rim, similar to the port bottle that attacked Tom. The killer seals their poison, he says, to hide their work until the moment of death. This is no amateur, Hastings. He pulls me aside, his voice a whisper. The attacks are escalating. Babington, Elsie, Strange, Tom, now Mrs. Baxter. The killer is desperate, striking anyone who might know their secret. The chest's letters point to a failed theater deal. A betrayed investor, perhaps tied to Sir Charles or Lady Mary. But why these victims? I frown, my mind racing. Could they have seen something, Poirot? Or known about the deal? He nods, his eyes gleaming. Exactly, mon ami. The note in Mander's room, the plan must change. He knows too much suggests a witness. Perhaps strange, perhaps another. We search the kitchen, the air heavy with the smell of burnt sugar and herbs. Behind a stack of pots, Poirot finds a small jar, its label faded, containing a clear liquid that smells like the nicotine vials. Hidden in plain sight, he murmurs, wrapping it in a handkerchief. A scrap of paper nearby, torn from a notebook, bears a single word, trust. Curious, Poirot says. A clue or a taunt? We move to the servants' quarters, searching for more evidence. In Tom's room, we find a crumpled note, written in a shaky hand. Tell no one. They're watching. The handwriting matches the attic letters, linking the attacks to the scandal. In Elsie's belongings, a locket holds a photo of a young man, similar to the one in Lady Mary's locket in the attic chest. A connection, Poirot says. Perhaps a son, a lover, or a secret. Back in the grand hall, the guests are a powder keg of fear, their elegance crumbling under the weight of death. Poirot gathers them, holding up the jar and the note. Madame, messieurs, he says, his voice cutting through the tension. The killer has poisoned again, targeting Mrs. Baxter. This jar, this note, they point to a secret worth killing for. Who among you knows of trust? The word hangs in the air, and Lady Mary's hand flies to her locket, her face pale. Sir Charles stammers, "It's nothing, Poirot. A business term, perhaps." But his eyes betray him, darting to Lady Mary. Angela, her voice trembling, denies touching the tea, but her script's notes on doses linger in Poirot's mind. Manders, his cigarette case empty, claims he was in his room, but the rare cigarette butt from the terrace says otherwise. Miss Wills, her notebook clutched tightly, says she saw nothing. But her coded entries describe Mrs. Baxter's routine in chilling detail. Poirot questions Lady Mary about her locket. His tone gentle, but relentless. "Madame, your locket matches. The one in Elsie's room, and the photograph in the chest? Who is this man?" Lady Mary's voice shakes. "My son. Long gone." "It's personal, monsieur." Poirot's eyes narrow, sensing a lie. Turns to Sir Charles. "And you, monsieur? Your theater deal, did it involve this man? A betrayal, perhaps?" Sir Charles pales, his voice weak. "It was years ago, Poirot. A failed investment, nothing more. What the letters suggest otherwise, a deal that cost lives, perhaps linked to the young man in the photos." Poirot's pen scratches faster, his notebook filling with connections Lady Mary's secrecy. Sir Charles's fear, Mander's note, Will's observations. We move to the attic again, searching for more clues. In a dusty corner, Poirot finds a hidden diary. Its pages filled with Sir Charles's handwriting detailing a theater venture that collapsed, leaving investors ruined and one man dead, a man who matches the photographs. This, Poirot says, is the heart of the tragedy. A betrayal, a death, and a cover-up. The killer kills to keep it hidden. I feel a chill, the pieces falling into place. Was Babington a witness to this scandal? Did Strange know the truth? Is Mrs. Baxter's poisoning a warning? As we return to the hall, a scream pierces the air from the conservatory. We rush through the manor, the air cold and damp, and find Angela Sutcliffe slumped against a glass wall, a glass of wine in her hand, her face contorted in pain. Poirot sniffs the wine, his eyes widening. "Poison again," he says, and the killer is striking without mercy. The guests crowding the doorway gasp in horror, their fear boiling over. The manor is a death trap, and the third act is reaching its deadly peak. That's the end of Chapter 7. With Poirot uncovering a scandal tied to Sir Charles's past, but another poisoning pushing the mystery to its breaking point. Who is protecting the secret, and who's next? Drop your theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 8 of the dark truth behind Poirot's three-act tragedy. The final curtain is near, and the killer is desperate. Lumouth Manor, once a glittering stage for Sir Charles Cartwright's grand parties, now feels like a crumbling theater, its oak-paneled halls and chandeliers cloaked in a suffocating veil of dread. The air carries the sharp sting of spilled wine, the musty scent of old secrets, and the ever-present bitterness of poison. A grim reminder of the killer's relentless performance. The murder of Reverend Stephen Babington, the poisoning of Elsie the maid, the attack on Tom the footman, the death of Dr. Bartholomew Strange, the collapse of Mrs. Baxter, and now the sudden poisoning of Angela Sutcliffe have turned this elegant gathering into a deadly three-act tragedy, each act more brutal than the last. I, Captain Arthur Hastings, stand in the conservatory, my heart pounding, my old army instincts urging me to grip the revolver in my pocket, my eyes darting to the glass walls where shadows flicker in the moonlight. Hercule Poirot, his black suit pristine despite the chaos, kneels beside Angela, his waxed mustache steady, his gray eyes burning with the fire of his little gray cells. The nicotine tin, the coded notes in Miss Muriel Will's room, the syringe in Oliver Mander's cigarette case, the cryptic script in Angela's dressing room, the monogrammed handkerchief, the attic chest's letters, and Sir Charles's diary tailing. A scandalous theater deal form a deadly web that Poirot is unraveling thread by thread. Inspector Cross, the gruff policeman, barrels into the conservatory, his face flushed with anger, but even he bows to Poirot's calm authority as the body count spirals. The manor is a death trap, and the killer is pushing this tragedy toward its final, fatal curtain. Angela lies slumped against the glass wall, her red dress pooling around her face twisted in pain, the wine glass still clutched in her trembling hand. Poirot sniffs the glass, his nose wrinkling at the familiar bitter odor of nicotine. "Mon Dieu," he murmurs, his voice low but urgent. The killer strikes without pause, targeting Mademoiselle Sutcliffe. This wine was poisoned, just like the others. I help ease Angela onto a wicker chair, my hands shaking as my wartime. Medical training kicks in, though her shallow breathing fills me with dread. The village doctor, already stretched thin with Elsie and Mrs. Baxter, rushes in, his face grim as he administers an antidote, but his muttered words suggest Angela's chances are slim. The guests crowded at the conservatory door are a chorus of gasps and stifled sobs. Lady Mary Lytton clutches her pearls, her face ashen. Oliver Manders stands rigid, his dark eyes unreadable. Miss Muriel Wills scribbles in her notebook, her glasses glinting. And Sir Charles, his theatrical mask shattered, looks like a man haunted by ghosts. Inspector Cross barks orders to seal the conservatory, but Poirot's voice cuts through the chaos. "No one leaves," he says, "until we expose the director of this deadly play." Poirot examines the wineglass, finding another faint smudge of wax on its rim like the port bottle that attacked Tom and Mrs. Baxter's teacup. The killer seals their poison, he says, wrapping the glass in a handkerchief to delay its discovery. This is a professional, Hastings, but their desperation betrays them. He points to a faint footprint in the soil near the conservatories. Potted fern's a man's shoe, narrow and polished, unlike Mander's scuffed boots or Sir Charles's loafers. "Someone was here," Poirot murmurs, "watching, waiting." I feel a chill, my mind racing to the suspects: Lady Mary's secretive locket, Sir Charles's damning diary, Mander's cryptic note, Will's coded observations, or Angela's script with its chilling notes on doses, the attic letters hinting at a betrayed investor and a dead man tied to Sir Charles loom large, as does the diary's tale of a failed theater deal that ruined lives. We search the conservatory, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and blooming orchids. Behind a trellis, Poirot finds a dropped cigarette case, silver surface engraved with O. Oliver Mander's initials. "He was here," Poirot says, "or someone wants us to think so." Inside the case is a single cigarette, its paper stained with a faint chemical smell like nicotine. I think of the rare cigarette butt on the terrace, matching Mander's brand, and wonder if he's the killer or a scapegoat. We move to the garden outside, where the moonlight casts eerie shadows across the rose bushes. Poirot finds a torn scrap of fabric caught on a thorn silk, pale blue, like the shawl Lady Mary wore at dinner. Another clue, he says, pointing to Madame Lytton, or a clever misdirection. Back in the grand hall, the guests are a bundle of raw nerves, their fear boiling over as news of Angela's poisoning spreads. Poirot gathers them, holding up the cigarette case and fabric. "Madame, et messieurs," he says, his voice piercing. The tension, the killer has poisoned Mademoiselle Sutcliffe, and these clues point to someone in this room. This cigarette case bears Monsieur Mander's initials, and this fabric matches Madame Lytton's shawl. Speak, or the truth will find you. Mander's jaw tightens, his voice low. "I lost that case days ago, Poirot. Someone's framing me." Lady Mary gasps, her hand flying to her shawl, now missing a corner. "My shawl was in my room," she cries, her voice trembling. Sir Charles, his face pale, stammers about the wine, insisting he poured it from a sealed bottle. Miss Wills, her pen pausing, says she saw Angela alone in the conservatory. But her coded notes describe her movements in eerie detail. Poirot questions Sir Charles about his diary, his tone relentless. "Monsieur, your theater deal cost Libza. Man died. Investors were ruined. Was Babington a witness? Strange a threat." Sir Charles shakes his head, his voice weak. "It was an accident, Poirot, years ago." But his eyes dart to Lady Mary, whose locket holds a photo of the same man. Poirot turns to Manders, holding up the cigarette case. "Monsieur, your note said he knows too much." "Who was he, strange Babington?" Clenches his fists, his voice sharp. "It's a play, Poirot, not a confession." Poirot's gaze shifts to Wills, her notebook open. "Mademoiselle, your notes track every victim. Are you the killer's scribe?" Wills adjusts her glasses, her voice soft. "I write what I see, monsieur." We search the manor further, with Cross's men guarding the guests. In the cellar, hidden behind wine barrels, Poirot finds a locked box, its key matching the one from Angela's room. Inside are more letters, detailing payments to a man named Ellis, the same man in the photographs, who died after the theater deal collapsed. Blackmail, Poirot murmurs, or a cover-up. Ellis was the key, and someone kills to keep his death secret. Study. We find a hidden ledger, its pages listing payments to the guests Lady Mary Manders. Even strange. They were all involved, Poirot says, in the deal, or its fallout. As we return to the hall, a loud crash echoes from the attic, followed by a muffled cry. We race up the creaking stairs, the air cold and dusty, and find Miss Wills. Slumped against a crate, a glass of water spilled beside her, her face pale but alive. Poirot sniffs the glass, his eyes narrowing. "Poison again," he says, "but a weaker dose will survive." The guests, alerted by the noise crowd. The attic door, their faces a mix of shock and dread. The killer is striking at every turn. The third act is reaching its deadly climax. That's the end of Chapter 8. With Poirot uncovering a blackmail scheme tied to a deadly theater deal, but another poisoning pushing the mystery to its limit. Who's protecting Ellis's secret? Can Poirot stop the killer in time? Drop your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 9 of the dark truth behind Poirot's three-act tragedy. The final act is near, and the truth is dangerously close. Lumouth Manor looms like a grand theater on the brink of collapse. Its oak-paneled halls and glittering chandeliers now shrouded in a suffocating fog of fear and death. The air is heavy with the musty scent of dusty crates, the sharp sting of spilled water, and the ever-present bitter tang of poison that has claimed so many lives. The murder of Reverend Stephen Babington, the poisoning of Elsie the maid, the attack on Tom the footman, the death of Dr. Bartholomew Strange, the near-fatal poisoning of Mrs. Baxter, the attack on Angela Sutcliffe, and now the poisoning of Miss Muriel Wills have turned Sir Charles Cartwright's elegant gathering into a deadly three-act tragedy. Each act more desperate than the last. I, Captain Arthur Hastings, stand in the attic, my heart pounding, my old army instincts urging me to grip the revolver in my pocket, my eyes scanning the shadows for the killer who seems to strike at every turn. Hercule Poirot, his black suit, still crisp, despite the chaos, kneels beside Miss Wills, his waxed mustache steady, his gray eyes blazing with the relentless fire of his little gray cells. The nicotine tin? The coded notes in Will's room? The syringe in Oliver Mander's cigarette case? The cryptic script in Angela's dressing room? The monogrammed handkerchief? The attic chest's letters? Sir Charles's diary? And the hidden ledger revealing a scandalous theater deal tied to a man named Lazar. Pieces of a deadly puzzle that Poirot is piecing together. Inspector Cross, the gruff policeman, storms into the attic, his face red with frustration. But even he knows only Poirot can unravel this web of deceit. The manor is a death trap, and the killer is pushing this tragedy toward its final, fatal. Curtain Miss Wills lies slumped against a crate, her glasses askew, her breathing shallow but steady. The spilled glass of water beside her carrying the faint, bitter odor of nicotine. Poirot sniffs the glass, his nose wrinkling as he confirms. The poison. Mon Dieu, he murmurs, his voice low but urgent. The killer grows reckless, striking again with a weaker dose. Mademoiselle Wills will live, but this attack is a warning. I help lift her to a nearby chair, my hands trembling as my wartime medical training kicks in, though the village doctor, now overwhelmed with victims, rushes in to administer an antidote. The guests crowded at the attic door are a chorus of gasps and whispers. Lady Mary Lytton clutches her pearls, her face pale. Angela Sutcliffe, still shaken from her own poisoning, leans against the wall, her red dress stark against her trembling. Frame Oliver Mander stands rigid, his dark eyes unreadable. Sir Charles, his theatrical charm long gone, looks like a man staring into his own doom. Inspector Cross barks orders to seal the attic, but Poirot's voice cuts through the chaos. No one leaves, he says, until we expose the mastermind of this deadly performance. Poirot examines the glass, finding another faint smudge of wax on its rim, matching the poison containers used before. The killer seals their work, he says, wrapping the glass in a handkerchief, but their haste betrays them. This dose was meant to frighten, not kill. He points to a faint footprint in the attic dust, a woman's shoe, small and delicate, unlike Angela's heels or Lady Mary's practical flats. Someone was here, he murmurs, watching, plotting. I feel a chill, my mind racing to the suspect's Lady Mary's secretive locket. Sir Charles's damning diary, Mander's cryptic note, Angela's script, or Will's coded observations. Now silenced by her own poisoning. The ledger's payments to the guests, and the letters about Lisa, man who died after a failed theater deal, point to a scandal worth killing for. Was Will's too close to the truth? We search the attic further. The air thick with dust, and the faint scent of old paper. Behind a stack of crates, Poirot finds a hidden compartment in the wall, containing a small notebook, its pages filled with shorthanded codes similar to Will's notes. It details the guests' movements, their conversations, even their drinks. With a chilling entry, Ellis must stay buried. Stop the witnesses. This, Poirot says, is the killer's script, written by someone who knows this house intimately. I think of Sir Charles, the host, and his diary, but also Lady Mary. It was locket ties her to Ellis. We move to the servants' quarters, searching for more clues. In a maid's room, we find a torn photograph, half of Ellis's face visible, matching the attic chest's image. Another piece, Poirot murmurs, linking the scandal to this house. Back in the grand hall, the guests are a bundle of raw nerves, their fear boiling over as news of Will's poisoning spreads. Poirot gathers them, holding up the notebook and photograph. Madame et messieurs, he says, his voice piercing. The tension, the killer has struck again, targeting Mademoiselle Wills. This notebook tracks your every move. And this photograph ties to a man named Ellis, whose death sparked a scandal. Who among you knows him? Lady Mary gasps, her hand flying to her locket, her voice trembling. He was my son, lost years ago. Sir Charles pales, his voice weak. Ellis was a partner, Poirot, in a failed deal. It's ancient history. But the ledger's payments suggest otherwise, linking both to the guests. Poirot questions Angela about her script, his tone relentless. Mademoiselle, your notes on doses are they for a play or a plan? Angela's voice shakes, her eyes wide. It's fiction, monsieur. Someone planted that vial. Poirot turns to Manders, holding up the cigarette case. Monsieur, Your cigarettes mark every crime scene. Were you watching or acting? Manders clenches his fists, his voice sharp. I'm no killer, Poirot. Poirot's gaze shifts too. Sir Charles, his diary in hand. Monsieur, your deal with Ellis cost lives? Did Babington know? Strange, Wills? Sir Charles stammers, his face ashen. I hid nothing, Poirot. But his eyes dart to Lady Mary, betraying a shared secret. We search Sir Charles's study again, finding a hidden drawer with a letter from Ellis, written days before his death. You betrayed me, Charles. The truth will come out. The handwriting matches the attic notes, and a faint scent of nicotine lingers on the paper. Blackmail, Poirot says, or revenge. Bliss's death was no accident, and someone kills to keep it hidden. I feel a chill, the pieces falling into place. Babington, a cleric who might have heard a confession. Strange, a doctor who knew too much. Wills, a writer who saw everything. But who is the killer? As we return to the hall, a loud crash echoes from the terrace, followed by a scream. We rush outside, the night air cold and damp. Find Lady Mary slumped against a bench, a glass of sherry beside her, her face pale but alive. Poirot sniffs the glass, his eyes narrowing. Poison again, he says, a weak dose, meant to warn the guests, crowding the terrace, gasp in horror, their fear exploding. The manor is a battlefield, and the killer is striking at every turn. That's the end of Chapter 9. With Poirot closing in on a blackmail scheme tied to Ellis's death, but another poisoning raising the stakes. Who's protecting the scandal? Can Poirot stop the killer before the final curtain? Drop your theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 10 of The Dark Truth Behind Poirot's three-act tragedy. The truth is near, but the danger is closer than ever. Lumouth Manor stands like a crumbling stage, its once grand halls and glittering chandeliers now cloaked in a suffocating fog of fear, death, and betrayal. The air is thick with the sharp tang of spilled sherry, the musty scent of old secrets, and the ever-present bitterness of nicotine poison that has stained this elegant gathering with blood. The murder of Reverend Stephen Babington, the poisoning of Elsie the maid, the attack on Tom the footman, the death of Dr. Bartholomew Strange, the near-fatal poisonings of Mrs. Baxter, Angela Sutcliffe, and Miss Muriel Wills, and now the latest. Attack on Lady Mary Lytton have turned Sir Charles Cartwright's lavish weekend into a deadly three-act tragedy, each act more desperate and brutal than the last. I, Captain Arthur Hastings, stand on the terrace, my heart pounding, my old army instincts urging me to grip the revolver in my pocket, my eyes scanning the moonlit shadows for the killer who seems to strike at every turn. Hercule Poirot, his black suit still pristine despite the chaos, kneels beside Lady Mary, his waxed mustache steady, his gray eyes blazing with the relentless fire of his little gray cells. The nicotine tin, the coded notes in Will's room, the syringe in Mander's cigarette case, the cryptic script in Angela's dressing room, the monogrammed handkerchief, the attic chest's letters, Sir Charles's diary, the hidden ledger, and the letter from Ellis, tailing a betrayed theater deal that cost Livzar pieces of a deadly puzzle that Poirot has nearly solved. Inspector Cross, the gruff policeman, storms onto the terrace, his face red with frustration. But even he knows only Poirot can bring this tragedy to its final curtain. The manor is a battlefield, and the killer is making their last, desperate stand. Lady Mary lies slumped against a bench, her sherry glass spilled, her breathing shallow but steady, her face pale with fear and pain. Poirot sniffs the glass, his nose wrinkling at the familiar bitter odor of nicotine. Mon Dieu, he murmurs, his voice low but sharp. Another poisoning, a weak dose meant to frighten, not kill. The killer is cornered, Hastings, and they strike to silence any who might expose them. I help ease Lady Mary into a chair, my hands trembling as my wartime medical training kicks in, though the village doctor, now overwhelmed, rushes in to administer an antidote, muttering that she survive. The guests, crowded at the terrace door, are a chorus of gasps and stifled sobs. Angela Sutcliffe, her red dress stark against her pale face, clutches the wall. Oliver Manders stands rigid, his dark eyes unreadable. Miss Muriel Wills, recovering from her own poisoning, scribbles weakly in her notebook. And Sir Charles, His theatrical charm, a distant memory, looks like a man facing his own reckoning. Inspector Cross barks orders to seal the terrace, but Poirot's voice cuts through the chaos. Mesdames et messieurs, he says, the killer has struck again, but their time is running out. The truth is near, and I, Hercule Poirot, will reveal it. Poirot examines the sherry glass, finding another faint smudge of wax, matching the previous poison containers. The killer seals their work, he says, wrapping the glass in a handkerchief, but their pattern betrays them. Points to a faint scuff mark on the Terrastona man's shoe, polished similar to the footprint in the conservatory. Someone was here, he murmurs, and they are among us. I feel a chill, my mind racing through the clues Lady Mary's, Locket and her son Ellis, Sir Charles's diary and ledger. Mander's note, he knows too much. Angela's script, Will's coded observations. The letters and diary point to a Scandal theater deal that collapsed, leaving investors ruined and Ellis dead, possibly murdered. Was Lady Mary protecting her son's memory? Was Sir Charles covering up a crime? Poirot pulls me aside, his voice urgent. Ah, Hastings! The killer kills to hide Ellis's death. Murder, not an accident.
Abington.
Strange. The others they knew or saw too much. The ledger's payments tie the guests to the scandal, but one is the mastermind. We search the terrace, the night air cold and damp, the roses casting eerie shadows. Behind a bench, Poirot finds a dropped pen, its tip stained with ink matching Will's notebook. Mademoiselle Wills was here, he says, or someone wants us to think so. In a flower bed, a crumpled note reads, "End it tonight." The handwriting matches the attic letters, linking the attacks to the scandal. We move to Sir Charles's private study, searching for final clues. In a locked drawer, Poirot finds a photograph of Ellis with Sir Charles and Lady Mary, dated just before the theater deal collapsed. This, Poirot says, is the heart of the tragedy. Ellis was betrayed, killed, and someone covers there. Tracks with murder. Back in the grand hall, the guests are a powder keg, their fear exploding as news of Lady Mary's poisoning spreads. Poirot gathers them, holding up the photograph, pen, and note. "Madame et messieurs," he says, his voice commanding silence. The killer has struck 7 times to hide a secret Ellis's murder, tied to a failed theater deal. This photograph shows Sir Charles and Lady Mary with Ellis, and this note demands an end. Who is the director of this tragedy? Sir Charles pales, his voice breaking. Ellis was my partner, Poirot. His death was an accident. Lady Mary sobs, her locket open, revealing Ellis's face. He was my son, she whispers, betrayed by greed. Poirot's eyes gleam, turning to Manders. Monsieur, your note said he knows too much. Was it Ellis? Manders clenches his fists, his voice sharp. It's a play, Poirot. Angela, her voice trembling, denies writing the script's doses, while Wills, weak but alert, insists her notes are fiction. Poirot's voice rises, his cane tapping the floor. The killer is here, and their mask is slipping. Babington heard a confession, strange new medical details. Wills saw everything, and the others were warnings. The ledger shows payments to cover a crimeless's murder, he points to. Sir Charles, Monsieur, you hid the truth? But did you kill? Sir Charles collapses into a chair, sobbing. I didn't kill Ellis. It was an overdose, a mistake. Poirot's gaze shifts to Lady Mary, then Manders, and finally Wills, whose pen stops. Mademoiselle Wills, he says, your notes describe every victim's habits. You knew the poison's source, Nan? Will's glasses glint, her voice soft. I only observed, Monsieur. Before Poirot can press further, a shot rings out from the library, shattering the silence. We rush in, the air thick with gunpowder, and find Manders slumped over a table, a pistol in his hand, a bullet through his chest. Poirot kneels, his face grim. Suicide, he says, or murder staged as one. A note beside Manders reads, I can't go on. The truth is out. The handwriting matches the attic letters, but Poirot's eyes narrow. A final act, he murmurs, but not the end. The guests, crowding the doorway, scream in horror, their fear exploding. Poirot stands, his voice steady. The killer is among us, and I will unmask them. That's the end of Chapter 10, with Poirot closing in on the killer as Manders. Death-suicide, or murder, pushes the tragedy to its peak. Who killed Ellis, and who's directing this deadly play? Drop your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the conclusion of the dark truth behind Poirot's three-act tragedy. The curtain is falling, and the truth is at hand.